appraisal cap, and tax ceiling. The law provides two limitations that are related to homestead exemptions. Appraisal cap. Appraisal cap limits the amount by which appraisals can increase from year to year. The appraisal cap applies to all homes that qualify for a homestead exemption. It is mandatory for all taxing units. With the cap, appraised values can increase, but more gradually than they might if appraisal increases were not limited. A property's appraisal value is usually the lower of 1. Market value, 2. Previous year's appraised value plus 10%. New improvements. The cap does not apply to value that comes from improvements made to the property. On the other hand, repairs and maintenance will not affect the cap. There is a special provision that addresses a repair of conditions caused by wind or water damage that make a home uninhabitable. Appraised cap example. Mr. Smith has received a homestead exemption for many years. The appraised value of his property last year was $145,000. Since January 1 of last year, he added a swimming pool with a contributory value of $25,000. The market value of his property this year is $190,000. What value will be listed in the appraisal records? Calculate the 10% cap on the property value from the previous year. $145,000 times 10% equals $14,500. Add the capped value to the previous year's appraised value. $145,000 plus $14,500 equals $159,500. Add the value of the new improvement. $159,500 plus $500 equals $184,500.
$500? $159. Read that again. Read that again.
Add the value of the new improvement. $159,500. Isn't that what I said?
Plus $25,000.
Plus $25,000 equals $184,500. I don't know what I said, to be honest with you. Mom, cross-eyed. $184,500 is less than the market value, so $184,500 would be listed on the appraisal records. Tax ceiling. The tax ceiling provides that taxes will never be higher than the amount of the ceiling. This is commonly called a tax freeze. The tax ceiling applies only to homes that qualify for a 65 or older disabled person's exemption. The ceiling is mandatory for school districts and optional for cities, counties, and junior college districts. The ceiling is usually set by the amount of taxes the person pays in the first full year of the exemption is in effect. In later years, taxes can never be higher than the amount paid in the first year, no matter how much the appraisal increases. For example, if property taxes are $1,500 on a year at the time the property receives the ceiling, they can never be higher than $1,500, although they could be lower in some years. Ceilings can be increased if new improvements are made after the original ceiling has been established, which typically creates a new higher ceiling. A person who receives the ceiling can transfer a percentage of benefit to a new home. The cap cannot be transferred, but the owner can qualify for a new cap after having the homestead exemption for 1 year. Comparison: cap versus ceiling. The appraisal cap applies to a home that has a general homestead exemption for at least 1 year. The tax ceiling applies to a home that receives a 65 or older or disabled person's exemption. The appraisal cap limits increases to the appraised value according to the following formula. Value will be the lesser of 1. Current market value, or 2. Last year's appraised value, plus 10% the value. Plus 10% plus the value added by any improvements. The tax ceiling limits taxes to no more than the amount paid in the first year of the property. The first year the property qualifies for the exemption, or the amount paid in the second year if that amount is lower. The appraisal cap is administered by the appraisal district that calculates the cap. The tax ceiling is administered by the assessor that calculates the ceiling. The appraisal cap can transfer to a new home. No. Appraisal cap, the cap does not transfer, but the owner can establish a new one after having a general homestead exemption for a year. The tax ceiling percentage benefit of the ceiling can be transferred to a new home. Disabled veterans exemption applies to disabled armed forces veterans, surviving spouse of a deceased disabled veteran, surviving children of a veteran. Exemptions may be applied to any property the veteran owns and designates. The exemption is in addition to other exemptions, may also be used on residents' homestead. The amount of exemption varies from $5,000 to $12,000 depending on the degree of disability. Late application provision extended to 5 years beginning with 2016 tax year forward. Other commonly encountered exemptions: non-business personal property, household goods, personal effects, family supplies, other non-business personal property except mobile homes, leased vehicles used primarily for non-business purposes. Farm and ranch exemptions: supplies, farm and ranch equipment, implements of husbandry, crops and livestock including eggs regardless of whether the egg is packaged. Business exemptions: tax abatement for economic development, free port, goods shipped out of state, goods in transit, goods moved to another location in Texas. Business, personal property, and mineral interest worth under $500. Pollution control property, stored drilling rigs, property used, transported in interstate commerce, cemeteries, a single business vehicle if it is owned by an individual and used partially for special personal use. I didn't read that right. A single business vehicle if it is owned by an individual and used partially for personal use. Yeah, that's better. Group organization exemptions: government-owned property, public property, charitable organizations, religious organizations, youth development organizations, veterans organizations, community housing development organizations, and various others. Administration of exemptions: Chief Appraiser administers exemptions with application. It's annual, it's one time, and there's no application fee. The deadline to apply is before May 1st. Failure to timely apply forfeits the exemption for the year, and various late application provisions provide exceptions. Homesteads have up to 2 years after delinquency date for the year to be exempted, for 2016 tax year or later. Disabled veterans, Section 11.22, have up to 5 years after delinquency date for the year to be exempted, for 2016 tax year or later. Disabled veterans or surviving spouse, 11.131 and 11.132, surviving spouse of armed forces member killed in action, 11.133, or surviving spouse of first responder killed in the line of duty, 11.134, have up to 1 year after delinquency date to be exempted. Automatic grant of 65 or older exemption. Applicants for homestead exemption must provide copies of driver's license or personal identification certificate. Chief Appraiser must act on exemption application, approve, modify and grant, disapprove and request more information, deny, note to the owner is required for modification, disapproval or denial, and property owner may protest, taxing unit may challenge. Preparation of appraisal rolls. Once the preceding steps are complete, the appraisal district compiles a formal list on paper or electronic of the taxable property. The list is called the appraisal records. The list must meet requirements set out in Property Tax Code Section 25.02. Real property account requirements: owners' names and addresses, identification such as street address, business name, etc., legal description, separate estates or interests, market value of the land and special use appraised value if applicable, market value of the improvements, appraised value of separately taxable estates or interests, amounts of partial exemptions for which the property qualifies, year of tax roll, name of each taxing unit in which the property has situs. Number 2, personal property account requirements: owners' names and addresses, location, description, market value, year of tax roll, name of each taxing unit in which the property has situs, restriction on posting information on internet website. Property Tax Code Section 25.027 states that information in appraisal records may not be posted on the internet if the information is a photograph, sketch, or floor plan of an improvement to real property that is designed primarily for use as a human residence, or indicates the age of a property owner, including information indicating that a property owner is 65 years of age or older. Confidentiality of certain home address information. Individuals who meet the criteria under Section 25.025 may choose to restrict public access to information in the appraisal records that are required under Section 25.02. Delivery of required notices. The Property Tax Code usually requires not down there. The Property Tax Code usually requires a notice for any action changing property values or increasing owners' tax liabilities. Notice of appraised value, Property Tax Code Section 25.19. Notice of appraised value is the most common appraisal notice. The Texas Constitution requires this notice. The notice must include previous value, current value, amount of exemptions, estimate of taxes at new value, notice of protest form, explanation of protest procedures, percentage of increase in value over fifth preceding year, homestead exemption application if the appraisal district believes the owner is occupying the residence and it does not have a homestead exemption. The notice must be given by May 1 or as soon as practicable, April 1st, or as soon as practicable for the residents' homesteads. The notice must be given by May 1st, or I already read that, didn't I?
Yes.
Okay. The notice must be given before the property record is submitted to the ARB for review. The notice is required if appraised value of property has increased, appraised value of property is greater than rendered value, property added to appraisal roll for the first time, property reappraised, ownership change, notice requested by property owner. I need to break a second.
Okay.
Special notice requirements. Property Tax Code Section 1.07D requires the following notices to be sent by certified mail. Tax Code Section 23.46C, notice that special appraisal will be removed and the rollback penalty imposed when land is diverted to non-agricultural use from land qualifying as agricultural under Article 8, Section 1D, Texas Constitution. Tax Code Section 23.54E, notice that a new application is required for agricultural land appraisal. Texas Code Section 23.541C, notice of penalty for late filing of an agricultural land appraisal application. Texas Code Section 23.55E, notice of a determination of a change of use or agricultural land and the imposition of the rollback penalty. Under Section 23.551, before the appraisal district may make a change of use, determination on agricultural land belonging to an owner who is 65 or older, the chief appraiser must make an extra effort to notify the owner. This requirement is very similar to the notice requirements on 65 or older homesteads. The chief appraiser must send by certified mail a form. I lost my place in that paragraph. The chief appraiser must send by certified mail a form for the owner to state if the land still qualifies for agricultural appraisal. The notice must also include instructions for returning the form along with a postage-paid return envelope. If the owner does not respond within 60 days, the chief appraiser must make a reasonable effort to locate the owner and determine if the land still qualifies. Reasonable effort includes, but is not limited to, sending the owner an additional notice by first-class mail immediately after the expiration of the 60 days in an envelope marked Return Service Requested, or providing the notice in another appropriate manner. An application for agricultural appraisal will need to include a place for the owner to state his or her date of birth. The chief appraiser is required to follow the notice requirements even if he or she does not know the owner's age. Texas Code Section 23.76E, notice of a determination of a change of use from timberland to the imposition of the rollback penalty. Texas Code Section 11.43Q, notice of cancellation.
Tax code.
What did I say?
Texas code.
Oh gosh. Tax Code Section 11.43Q, notice of cancellation of an exemption under Section 11.13 for those 65 and older. The appraisal district will be required to make an extra effort to notify an owner if the district is requiring the owner to file a new application for this exemption. Before the district may cancel the exemption, 2 separate notices must be mailed to the owner. The district must first send the owner a notice by certified mail that includes a form the owner may complete and declare he or she still qualifies for the exemption. Also, the notice must include a postage-paid envelope along with instructions for returning the form. If the owner does not respond within 60 days, the district may cancel the exemption 30 days later if the district has made a reasonable effort to locate the owner and determine if he or she still qualifies. A reasonable effort includes, but is not limited to, mailing immediately after the expiration of the 60 days an additional notice of cancellation by first-class mail in a Return Service Requested envelope.